My lords, nomadic empires will not be able to build megastructures. What are your thoughts on that? We will get to it later, I promise. But first, today we're going to be talking about contracts, life on the Arkship, and the Forever Crew's origin. We'll also look at the new model of civilian Ark and logistics ships, harvest resources, reprocess unnecessary planetoids, build some kilo structures, and examine the way the Arkship works. So let's start with contracts. Contracts are going to allow settled empires to outsource work to nomadic empires, and we're given some examples. Do you need a hostile space fauna cleared from a system, resources harvested, or a third party to join your war? Well, issue a contract. They come in 4 categories: military, science, resource, and diplomacy, and they will cost trade to issue. My biggest takeaway at this point is a third party to join your wars. I wonder if that's an ongoing war or if that is like an invitation when you start a war. From the nomadic side, contracts are a way to earn income. If you accept a contract, send your Arkship to the location, complete the work, and then collect the trade reward. So we are shown a build way station contract that gives a reward of 2,500 trade, 50 opinion, and 5 trust. And it also seems that we can abandon that contract if we wish. Some contracts are going to require us to complete one or more special projects, or perform Arkship fleet orders, such as harvest resources or bombard planets. Completed contracts will reward us with increasing amounts of trade and improve opinion and trust with the issuer. This will open the door to wayline packs and deeper diplomacy. It's rather interesting that we're only getting trade. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with trade, but I guess that's just the universal currency. We're given a simple example. As the issuer, the clear blockers contract lets you remove all natural blockers from a colony without researching the necessary tech. As long as the nomadic empire in the galaxy has researched the new planetary engineering technology, the contract becomes available to issue. This does feel like quite a simple one. I mean, clearing blockers is certainly important, and I guess the technologies are a bit jumbled up. There are multiple different technologies you need to clear all blockers. So this does potentially have some value. From the Nomad side, you'll fly an Arkship into the system. Note, an Arkship, not the only Arkship, because you can have more than one, of course. You'll complete the special project and collect the reward. Nomadic empires are limited to one contract per Arkship, but with the ability to build more Arkships, it's possible to accept more contracts. I wonder if the Arkship is specific to the contract, a bit like a scientist doing a dig site, or if you can just have, if you have 5 Arkships, you can just have 5 contracts and pick and choose whichever Arkship you want to send wherever you like. But the system does seem reasonably straightforward. If you're issued a task, go and get it done. It'll be interesting to see how the AI delivers tasks to you, the player, as a nomad. Nomads have new focused tasks, some related to contracts and other parts of nomadic experience, as well as modified focus progression steps. The progression tiers have also been adjusted for all empires to make it easier to reach the highest tier. So this is talking about that empire progression UI that I don't know if anyone, I mean, you can see it on screen now. I think I've used this for all of 3 minutes before I closed it and completely ignored it. Is this something that you guys engage with? I know that you can get certain technologies and stuff from it, but I find it not the most intuitive thing, and I feel like I just don't have the mental capacity to engage with it. Although maybe that's the wrong way of describing. I've never felt the need to engage it, and so I just don't. But maybe it's helpful for newer players. I would be interested to get some feedback on that actually as a mechanic. Is that one that you find useful? You can read more on contracts and other nomadic topics in the databank by using the new Nomads DLC filter. Oh, interesting. I didn't know you could just type in a DLC and it will bring up certain things about that DLC. That's interesting. I do find the databank relatively useful though, even though perhaps it doesn't always go into the depth that you would like it to, depending on the topic. But I guess we've got the wiki for that as well. Let's move on to something perhaps more detailed, the Forever Crew's origin. Now this one really has sparked my interest, particularly the idea that we could play it as a rogue servitor. I think that's a really cool idea. And of course, this is very much the Snowpiercer origin. Your suite is ready, the zero gravity sucrose fountain is operational, and our observation decks are open. Nebulae to witness, alien shores to visit, spectacles yet unimagined, our crew exists to make it happen. The Forever Cruise travels the stars in search of wonder and excitement. Where the birth of nebulae can be observed from the comfort of a sun lounger, the dedicated crew work tirelessly to cater to any passenger whim. So there are some requirements. You can't be xenophobic. I'm not sure I agree with that straight off the bat. Why can't we have a cruise full of space racists? What's wrong with that? I don't like that. Why can't we be xenophobic? That's very odd. You also can't be some other civics which mostly make sense, like driven assimilators, planetscapers, genocidal. Genocidal, I guess, yeah, genocidal probably does make sense. Oh, okay, this will explain why we can't be xenophobic, I guess. The Forever Cruise begins with 2 species on 1 Arkship, so I'm assuming this is why you can't be xenophobic. The crew is your primary species, who fills every working role on the ship. The passengers, your secondary species, a class of leisure seekers that generate unity at a steep consumer goods cost. The crew can be a regular empire, a hive mind, or a machine intelligence, including a variant of the rogue servitor. So that's really interesting. Okay, so it's very much a rogue servitor style mechanic where you have a secondary species of biotrophies, except they're called leisure seekers. Very interesting. Oh wow, and if we look at the civic, so we can see that passengers must use mandatory pampering living standards, but economy class passengers are replaced with neglected biotrophies. Interesting, so it looks like there's different classes of passenger. At the heart of the Forever Cruise is a question that never goes away. Who does the ship serve? The passenger satisfaction situation tracks this as a persistent tug of war. If the passengers grow bored, the needle drifts towards planetfall on the left, and if the crew is overworked, it drifts towards mutiny on the right. You'll begin in the middle, cruising in steady, and your job is to keep it reaching either extreme. What would happen if the crew mutinies? Is that like an internal rebellion? That's very interesting. Both sides of the ship issue their own contracts, which are internal demands that affect the direction that the passenger satisfaction situation moves. That's quite a mouthful, isn't it? Passenger satisfaction situation. Passenger contracts are about entertainment, while crew contracts are about maintenance and stress relief. If it's anything like a real life cruise ship, I bet the crew get up to some real stress relief. The Forever Cruise can also complete regular contracts issued by other empires, but remember that passengers are so used to entertainment that a harvest resource contract could bore them. The Forever Cruise introduces the unique service district, which has specializations for the crew or passengers. The habitation decks, which are city districts, can be specialized as fabrication decks for the crew, or an observation deck for passengers, or a utility deck, which can be used by both. The Origin adds 8 unique buildings, for example the passenger estates, which increase your first class passenger capacity, and the enrichment labs, which turn passengers into amateur researchers. Ooh, that's cool. For the crew side, buildings like the Hollow Production Studios churn out passenger fantasies on demand, which boosts entertainers. The crew coordination unlocks the activity manager, a new elite stratum job that boosts workers and specialist output across the Ark ship. But push the situation too far in either direction and it is over. With planetfall, the passengers force you to settle, which turns you into a regular empire, and with mutiny, the crew revolts and demand government changes. Both outcomes strip away everything that makes Forever Cruise unique. Can you keep the cruise running forever? Wow, okay. This feels like an incredibly detailed origin, and I'm betting that this is going to be incredibly powerful based on the way that we've seen some of the job changes work and some of the building changes work. So this origin adds 8 unique buildings, which in turn will offer job swaps and those kind of things. And the rogue servitor mechanic in the way that it works is already really powerful. I suspect that some people are going to be able to unlock this origin to produce absolutely wonderful levels of numbers previously unseen. There's too much uniqueness for it not to be just mind-bogglingly powerful. We are teased with a shot of the civilian Arkship tiers, which as you can see is slightly different to what we saw last week. They do look cool, don't they? Bathed in that glow of the red sun. Very interesting indeed. So if science Arkships are meant to explore the galaxy and find wonders, civilian Arkships are industrial powerhouses meant to refine those wonders into something useful. See, that's interesting. I'm not sure I'd say a civilian Arkship is an industrial powerhouse. But then I guess if there's only 3, military, scientific and civilian, I guess you have to make your stuff somewhere. Interesting. The keen-eyed amongst you will have noticed that the Voidfarer origin grants the Arkship action speed of plus 20. This applies to all special fleet orders that we'll be going through later, but not the deep scan and subspace image orders that we discussed last week. So deep scan was the one that could potentially create a wormhole or a hyperlane. The primary fleet orders these will apply to belong to the category of harvesting actions. These actions share common features. They target celestial objects that are not stars or habitable planets, which is interesting because I'm sure that in the trailer they were harvesting a habitable world. They harvest resources depending on the local resource deposits. Depending on the planet class of the targeted object, they will harvest additional resources. The amount of harvested resources will depend on the size of the deposit. Well, that seems reasonable. Although nomadic empires will start the game with strategic extraction technologies, additional technologies can be researched to improve the harvesting of strategic and rare resource deposits. Harvesting resources in owned systems will have diplomatic consequences with the system owner. Well, that makes sense. You can't just come into my space and take my stuff, and I'm okay with it. After a harvesting has been completed, the celestial object has the resource depletion modifier applied to it for a number of years. This prevents another harvesting being done while it is present. It reduces the resources from mining stations in orbit of the celestial object by 75%, and it can be removed by deep scanning the celestial object. 75% reduction is quite something indeed. If you were, let's think for a second. If there was an empire with an arc furnace in system, and you sent in your Arkship, and you began to harvest resources on all of the stellar bodies in that system, you could really have a drastic effect on someone's mineral and potentially alloy output. That's quite something. So we're given a breakdown of what planet classes give what resources. Asteroids, ice will give us energy and rare crystals. Rocky asteroids, give us minerals and volatile motes. Barren worlds give us minerals. Frozen worlds give us crystals for some reason. Gas giants give us gases. Molten worlds give us motes. And toxic worlds also give us gases. I guess that makes sense. We're also told that other planets may give us different stuff. We're also shown some of the utility slots that can be added. One of them is called the Planetary Engineering Lab. That increases resources from harvesting actions by 5% and unlocks the planetary strip mining ability. We're also shown a spinal mount called the Planetary Reprocessor, and this will increase resources from harvesting actions by 25%. Both arc ships and logistic ships can be automated, just like science and construction ships, but with a few different options. So the option we're shown on the civilian arc ship is to survey, collect stockpiles, harvest resources, and conduct planetary strip mining. Whereas on the logistic ship, we're simply shown collect stockpile and harvest resources. As a reminder, when collecting resources from a way station or way line, logistic ships add the resources to their internal stockpile and have to deliver them to the arc ship in order for these resources to be used. If a logistic ship has automation enabled, whenever its stockpile reaches 10% free capacity, it will automatically route to the nearest arc ship to drop off the resources and then resume the automated orders. If resources have been harvested, the deposits will appear orange in both system and galaxy view. So this is showing you the minus 75% debuff, which, like I said, I think is quite significant. When a harvesting action is selected in the fleet UI, all valid targets will be shown in the system, and the resource icons will swap, showing what resources can be gained if that target is selected. Wow, look at the amount of resource you can get from some of these planets. That's very high. 750 minerals, 300 alloys, and 750 motes. I wonder how that's going to be balanced. I get the impression that that's going to be quite difficult to balance, given that you can just produce quite a, 750 minerals. We don't know what point this is in the game, but that's quite a lot of minerals to just magic. If a harvesting action is ordered via the context menu or either the system or galaxy view, the tooltip will inform you of which resources will be gained. Issuing the order via the context menu on the galaxy map will also queue the order for all valid targets in the system. When a harvesting action is completed, the toast or notification will show the resources gained. I'm really intrigued to see what you guys think about some of this. I think because you can automate so much of it, it will be really interesting to see what you have to engage with to actually get the resources that you need to be able to play out the game, or how much you're going to have to be involved to actually do some of this. Because I'm thinking in my mind, what am I interested in if I'm playing as a nomad? Well, I want to be able to explore the galaxy. That's sort of my favorite part of the game. But when you play as a planet-side empire, you build up your planets with, your mining buildings or your farms or whatever, and then they just continue to give you resource and you don't really have to engage with them beyond that point. You build it and then you can forget about it. The setup of these and the way that you acquire resources is quite different indeed. Clearly we have a lot of ability to automate some of these resource gathering techniques. But imagine if we have 5 arc ships and 3 logistic or 4 logistic ships per arc ship. There's going to be quite a lot going on throughout the galaxy, bringing resource from A to B to C and, getting it all around. It potentially is going to be quite complicated. Due to their highly mobile nature, nomadic empires cannot build megastructures. But they can build kilostructures. The list of non-crisis path megastructures that nomadic empires have access to are arc furnaces, Dyson swarms, gateways, the Grand Archive, hyper relays, quantum catapults, and way stations. All of these can be built by both arc ships and logistic ships. All requirements from megastructure construction that require must own the system for settled empires are instead changed to system must be on a way line with a tier 2 or tier 3 way station. So this is quite game changing. Nomadic empires can't build megastructures. The key ones here, for me, Sentry Array, Mega Shipyard, and then you could make an argument for the Dyson Sphere and the matter decompressor. And Science Nexus, actually. I'd forgotten about Science Nexus. I wonder how that would work if they're in a system with a way station, even though they can't have access to. I wonder if there'd be any sort of interaction there. Arc ships can also build additional arc ships via the Megastructure build menu, which upon construction will automatically gain a new colony with 1,000 of your founder pops. The final thing to discuss today is life on the Arc ship, so let's talk about it. According to the developers, life on the Arc ship and its economic ramifications are best looked at by taking a step back. One of the developers' earliest design goals was that nomads should have a relatively simple nomads should move, which is very self-evident, but it remained a challenge until the end to make sure this was cleaved into the vision. Every mechanic that was added had to either encourage this or at least not run counter to it. The first mechanical step into this direction was straightforward and will be the first thing that we notice when we play as a nomadic empire. You don't have mineral districts, so gaining minerals must be achieved via other means, and this neatly introduces the need for you to move to harvest minerals. Even neater, it introduced the second big ship design problem. Nomads should want to move. Forcing you to move or perish was relatively straightforward, but felt empty because the movement was forced. It led to testers moving as little as necessary and then sitting stationary for as long as possible. And it seems that the developers ran into a problem here, as they were left with a perception issue. There was an angry red number in the top economy bar, telling you were losing more and more resources the more you built up your arc ship, and the worse it got. All the actions that should lead you to success, like building research, Unity alloys, made the number redder and angrier. And it became very apparent that simply not having an income in minerals was not enough. It didn't feel like a new playstyle, but it felt like an old playstyle, but worse. They bashed their design heads together, and before they know it, they had the solution: operational reserves. For Nomads, both energy and minerals are handed through the operational reserve situation. This is the resource required for the Arkship's day-to-day operations. Any energy or minerals that come in go straight into your reserves, and any that leave come from the reserves. That feels to me exactly like how it currently works. We're told if our reserves are high, you get a stability and research speed bonus. If your reserves are low, you get a ship combat penalty and a slight stability penalty. The stages are simple in their effects, but the main goal is to make it rewarding to have high resource reserves and punishing to have low reserves. Your ships will be incredibly ineffective if their reserves are low, but since your economy and harvesting is untouched, you should always be able to recover. Okay, now that I've read more about this concept, I think it's a really clever idea. I'm thinking Voyager, for example. How many torpedoes was she supposed to have? Well, yeah. But the idea is sound. If the ship is stacked with resources, the decision that you make will be very different to if the ship has very little resources. I think that makes a lot of sense. To really embrace this as a playstyle, the developers set up all Nomad districts, buildings and specializations to not require fixed mineral costs, but instead depend on rare resources which you can gain through assorted Arkship actions. A lack of minerals should be a problem to solve, not a blocker on you taking action to fix your problem. In addition, they ended up with 3 approaches, with the default one being neutral, balanced and relaxed. The saving approach reduces your job upkeep while also reducing your researcher and bureaucrat job efficiency. Meanwhile, the burning approach increases your build speed and specialist job efficiency, which logically increases your energy and mineral upkeep as well. The goal for both approaches is to introduce a natural way to adjust your operational reserves progress. I think that all is very logical and makes an awful lot of sense. They do go on to say that being at 0 operational reserves is a failure state. You won't lose, but it will carry additional penalties and you won't have a great time. Please restrict your deficit spending bankruptcy strategies to about 364 years before our start date. See, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. I think if you run out of food, your population shouldn't just stop growing. I think it should start declining, personally. And I don't think that's any different for Nomad empires than it should be for planet empires. But let's talk about the standard setup we can expect on an Arkship. Each Arkship will have the base city district, a generator district, and depending on whether or not they require food, a farming district or a special housing district. Your starting specializations for the city district will be unique Arkship variants with slightly bigger spread to your jobs. Your researcher and unity specializations will also add a few traders, for example. This is necessary for the simple reason that as a nomad, in general you will have far fewer colonies for longer periods of time than regular empires, and as such, having to sacrifice a district becomes much more painful. So I'm assuming the assumption here is that you can't just add a random trade building and it not cost you much because you're very limited on slots versus a regular empire. Perhaps as you should be though. Now with all that said, what about that red coloured hole in your list of districts? What fancy new toy do we get for not having any mining districts? Well, most Arkships, just to interrupt that, ring worlds have mining districts. Ring worlds make it make sense. Anyway, most Arkships will have ordnance engineering districts. Ordnance engineering gives you soldier jobs, okay, which grant more naval cap but no defensive armies. Hang on, that introduces, gives naval capacity but no defensive armies on Arkships. We don't need defensive armies on Arkships, do we? Because you can just shoot them with guns. You don't need to invade them. I wonder if you can build... You must be able to build armies as a nomadic empire though. Wait, no, because you can't invade another planet. You can't be a nomad and a settled empire at the same time. Which in itself is slightly odd, isn't it? There's no reason that the Commonwealth of Man couldn't have settled Unity and then got back aboard the Chrysanthemum and gone on a jaunt. Interesting. The new district comes with quite the selection of specializations, though nearly all of them tend to be on the more militaristic side of the game. So we're shown missile slots, ammunition lines, laser guns, void forges. We're shown a bunch of different buildings. By utilizing some of these new special district specializations, we added for ordnance engineering you might be able to squeeze some more benefits out of them, as well as buff your Arkship to be a real combat monster capable of annihilation fleets. I wonder if that's supposed to say capable of annihilating fleets, if you're willing to put your pops to use. This opens up quite a few questions that I hadn't necessarily considered, mostly to do with a nomadic empire is never really going to want to go to war because it can't do anything, it can't take any territory, and it also has nothing to lose. How is war going to work for nomadic empires? I hadn't given this any thought at all. If a nomadic empire declares war on, say, the United Nations of Earth, and they send their Arkships and all their military into Sol, and they capture the star system, they can't capture the planet because they're not allowed to own the planet. So what's the point in the war at all? Unless it's a liberation war maybe, or a humiliation war maybe. And equally, you can see from a planet settler side, if I have a nomad empire entering my space, being irritating, stealing my resources, well, I would absolutely declare war on them and build a big chunky starbase to keep them out. And the nomad empire can't really do anything. They can try and fight the starbase, I guess, but yeah, interesting. What are your thoughts on that? Am I missing the point? Have I blown over something that I've missed, or do you think it's odd as well? The final thing we're given is the new portrait. 4.4 will also include the missing Behemothkin variants. So my understanding is that the Behemothkin that we were given with the season pass, season 10, was only one variant, and people were rightfully so disappointed. And whether or not that was a mistake or not, we're getting another 4 variants with 4.4, which will be Nomads as well, which looks pretty cool. I quite like this one at the end on the right. Actually, do you know, I quite like them all. I'm less interested in the golden one. I think the number 4 looks very cool. Number 1 and 2 look okay as well. I quite like the blue eyes. Shroud Master. Well, my lords, that was another long and detailed development diary. If you have not ordered season 10 yet and you wish to do so, I would encourage you to please use my link. As ever, thank you for watching.